Hi, I'm Natalie from Waterworks Quilting. Today we're going to talk about how to make half square triangles so that the straight of the grain falls along the edge of the quilt block. Here's an example that I finished recently, and here's one half square triangle. When I make these, I want to be sure the lengthwise or the crosswise grain falls along here or this edge, one of these edges. You want your bias to be down the center. You never want your bias to fall on the edge of your quilt block or your unit, because it will become distorted as you start sewing it into other pieces or possibly onto your border. Sometimes you don't have borders, and for example, if this was an example of your whole quilt, you would be doubly sure that you had the straight of the grain along these edges of this quilt so that it doesn't get distorted as you work with it. Let's talk now about how to make half square triangles with the straight of the grain along the edge of the block. Alright, let's talk about how you're going to make your half square triangles. In your pattern, it probably tells you what size of a square to cut. So you cut that side of the square, your two colors, you put right sides together. You draw a line at the diagonal of your two squares on the light fabric. Then you sew 1/4 inch away on each side. You use your 1/4 inch foot, follow the edge of the 1/4 inch foot on that drawn line. Then your seam will be 1/4 inch away on both sides. So you'll have two seams. When you're done, then it'll look like this. There's your drawn line and there's your two seams. Line up your ruler on the drawn line. You're going to cut on the drawn line and cut like that. I have already one cut here. I started with a square like so with the two. Then I cut it, and now you have two half square triangles. So what you need to do at this point is open them up and press them typically toward the dark, depending on what's needed in your next steps. The grain of your fabric, again, is along the outside of this half square unit. And when you're done, you have these two half square units. What I usually like to do at this point is square them up, because after you've done all of this, it's usually not an exact size for what the pattern says. This is how you square up a half square triangle. I want this to be 3-inch finished. So one thing I'm going to do is line up my 45-degree line along the seam. That way I know it's lined up properly for the square. I want to be able to cut off a little bit here and a little bit there. And I want to leave myself just a little bit on the other two sides to trim off too, so I have it perfectly square. So the 3-inch line is just inside here under the ruler and just inside there. And then there's a little bit of the pink and the green for me to cut off that's showing. So I cut it off like so, two directions. Then I turn this 180 degrees. At this point, now I'm lining up my 3-inch line here and my 3-inch line there, as well as the 45-degree angle line along the seam. All of those things should line up before you cut. Once you're ready, then you're going to cut off the excess on the remaining two sides, double checking before you cut that you still have a 3-inch good unit remaining. Don't they always say measure twice, cut once? That's usually a good idea. And then you have a perfectly square, half square triangle, and then those dog ears are off the side. That makes it easier for you to piece a little later. Again, your grain of your fabric is along the outside of these triangles. Your bias is down the middle. Your bias has a seam in it, so it's stabilized at this point. That's all that you need to cut good half square triangles and keep them on grain. Join me next time when I show you how to cut several half square triangles at once and create them 8 at a time, while still keeping the outside of your squares on the grain of the fabric. Bye for now.